The Boston Bruins are the fastest team in NHL history to reach the 50-win mark, and they're also the only team in the NHL this season with an X beside their names, having already clinched a playoff spot. So what's next over the next 17 games? Well, we're going to talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things about your playoff-bound Spoked Bee. Today is Monday, March 13th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day, every day, free and available on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube. So please hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a thing heading down the stretch in the regular season and into the playoffs. If you're on Twitter, Instagram, you can find the podcast at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my dad jokes, and hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren. On today's show, we're going to discuss the weekend that was a split home-and-home series with the Detroit Red Wings. Going to talk about what the Bruins need to focus on or some priorities for this team heading down the stretch, and take a look at the week ahead. Saturday, the Boston Bruins defeated the Detroit Red Wings, came back from a 2-0 deficit. Garnet Hathaway, the hero, scoring the game winner. The victory was Boston's 50th of the season in just 64 games, setting a new NHL record. It's the 12th 50-win campaign in Bruins history, second straight. They had 51 last season, and the most since hitting the mark 4 straight seasons from 70 to 74, being the second in a row. The fourth line really shone in the, is it Sean or Shone? Sean? Anyways, they were a bright spot in the game on Saturday. AJ Greer getting a puck on net. Garnet Hathaway gathering the rebound, putting it past Hellberg for the game winner. AJ Greer said he loves playing for this team. He loves wearing the Bruins logo. It's been an amazing journey. They're not really focused on anything right now besides playing the right way for 60 minutes every night, making sure that each and every guy is pushing each other to do their best, stay collective and content with what they have in the locker room, go out there and just play Bruins hockey. Now, that wasn't necessarily the case on Sunday, as the Bruins found themselves once again down early and down big. They were trailing 4-0 at one point, and it wasn't until Matt Grzelcyk scored that the Bruins showed a bit more life. They didn't give up, which has been a trademark of this team all season long, even when they've been down. Ultimately, they weren't able to get all the way back, losing 5-3 to the Detroit Red Wings for only their 10th regulation loss of the season. So after 65 games, they're 50, 10, and 5, an .808 point percentage, and a plus 103 goal differential. They showed some resilience. They tried to push back, ultimately fell short. And I know a lot of people were saying, you're not going to be able to play like this in the playoffs and expect to come back. I don't think that's going to be the case. You know, it's a back-to-back situation. Yes, Detroit was in the same boat. There was travel involved, but it's going to happen. And I'm not losing sleep over what happened this weekend. It was an emotional return for Tyler Bertuzzi. I saw on Instagram that his child was celebrating their first birthday over the weekend, so I'm sure he was in a weird headspace going back to Detroit, missing that milestone. And I think there was some personal issues at play as well in the decision to start Swayman in 2 of these 3 recent games. And if you follow Linus Ullmark on Instagram, you would have seen that his beloved family dog passed away last week. So that might have played a part in Swayman getting the start against the Oilers on Thursday. Ullmark getting only one of the past 3 starts. I personally would have gone Ullmark, Swayman, Ullmark, but perhaps that was a differentiating factor in the decision for Jim Montgomery to choose to go with Swayman in 2 of these games. Another bright spot, Dmitry Orlov became the fastest defenseman in Bruins history to hit 10 points with the club. He's ahead of Al Iafrate, who did it in 11 games. Brad Park, Irv Spencer also did it in 11 games. He had 7 for 10 points in 7 games played for the Boston Bruins, which is insane. Ullmark did get the win on Saturday. He's 33-4-1 in 40 games. 33 wins are the second most by a goalie through 40 games in NHL history, behind Boston's own Tiny Thompson back in the 20s. Well, 1920-30 to be more precise. Overall, yeah, you'd want to get both games against a team that is outside of the playoff picture. The Bruins, had they played like they did in the third period all game long, then all things being leveled, they should have taken those 2 games. But again, I'm not losing too much sleep over just their 10th regulation loss in their 65th game of the season. They have a playoff spot clinched. They all but have home ice advantage clinched with a 11-point lead over the Carolina Hurricanes and the New Jersey Devils, who are now level with Carolina atop the Metropolitan Division. And right now, it's all about, well, we'll talk about that here in a moment. Some priorities for the Boston Bruins down the stretch. We'll also look to the week ahead. But first, a quick word about today's sponsor, which is Athletic Greens. Our next partner has a product that thousands are using literally every day to improve their gut health, get more energy, an optimized immune system, and it's called Athletic Greens, more specifically AG1. With AG1, you can absorb 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews. It's recommended by professional athletes and trusted by leading health experts. Right now, you can reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. All it takes is 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. That's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, so the Boston Bruins have clinched a playoff spot. They're the fastest team in NHL history to 50 wins. And there's a danger that arises that maybe there'll be some complacency that sets in. Not according to AJ Greer's comments that I talked about earlier, but it's just a reality. There's going to be some load management. We saw Hampus Lindholm sit out this weekend. He was wearing a boot after blocking a shot. Expected to play Boston's next game, but you're going to see some guys in and out of the lineup to give them a rest. So what's the priorities for the Bruins heading down the stretch? Well, first and foremost, it's health. You want a fully healthy Boston Bruins lineup heading into the postseason. There was a report last week that Taylor Hall, after getting a second opinion on his lower body injury, could be back to practice here on Monday. I actually think practice was canceled, but perhaps he'll be skating on his own back at Warrior as the Bruins are on this road trip. Nick Foligno hopefully will be healthy for the playoffs. Everybody else, put them in bubble wrap. And there's kind of a balance that goes along there, right? Do you want to be playing all out, full on playoff intensity hockey down the stretch? Probably not. But you don't also want to lack intensity needed to remain at kind of peak performance. So it's a real balancing act for the Bruins right now. You want to protect yourselves. You don't want to go balls to the wall on a Tuesday night against last place Chicago when you have everything wrapped up. But you also want to play smart, play effective, and make plays and get the job done and continue to excel. So that's a big thing for the Boston Bruins right now, staying healthy. And part of that will be giving some guys some rest down the stretch. Maybe that was why Ullmark only played one game over the last 3, just to give him some extra rest and lean on Swayman a bit more down the stretch. Something else they'd really need to work on is the power play. Obviously, since February 1st, Boston's power play ranks 27th in the NHL. Only Ottawa, St. Louis, Philly, Vegas, and Chicago have worse power plays. Boston is converting at only 14%. The top power play since February 1st, the Toronto Maple Leafs, 30.6%. Edmonton Oilers, 30.4%. Carolina, 29.7%. Nashville's in there, but then you have the Rangers and Devils. Those are 5 teams with very real Stanley Cup aspirations. The Bruins really need to work on this power play. We've seen lately some overpassing, some poor puck management, 2 shorthanded goals against over the weekend at the hands of the Detroit Red Wings. That's a huge priority for the Boston Bruins. Part of that, the third priority for me, so we got health, power play especially, and I should add, since February 1st, Boston's penalty kill ranked 11th. So while overall it's still ranked first, it's dropped to 11th since February 1st. And overall, Boston's power play has dropped to 10th. So they still have the best penalty kill, not as much lately. Power play has really dropped off. They're now ranked 10th and again, 27th. The third thing after health and cleaning up special teams is finding optimal lines. The Bruins experimented a bit over the weekend. At one point, Whereuzzi was up with Marchand and Bergeron. You had Whereuzzi playing with Pastrnak and Krejci until the Czech line was reunited on Sunday. You had Whereuzzi down with Coyle and Frederick. When he was up on the first line, you had DeBrusk down there. When healthy, obviously the options are a bit more limited right now with Hall and Foligno out of the lineup, but when healthy, Jim Montgomery is going to have some decisions to make about who is in and who comes out. And the fourth line was probably the team's best on Saturday especially, and over the weekend they looked really good. That line of Nosek, Hathaway, and Greer. So where does Bertuzzi fit in? You've seen him, playing very well at times, playmaker. You'd like to see him take a few more shots. Perhaps he's been deferring to his teammates, not wanting to seem like selfish or a puck hog at this point. Kind of finding his way in the system. It's only been a few games. Orlov, of course, came out of the gate running. You want to find your optimal lines as well as your ideal top 6. Who's going to sit when it comes down to it in the playoffs if everybody's healthy? Is it going to be Matt Grzelcyk? Going to be Connor Clifton? Derek Forbort, I don't think that's going to happen with his penalty killing acumen. Likely going to be Grizzly, even though he scored on Saturday. So these are some decisions that the Bruins have to make down the stretch, and it's going to be a bit tougher. If you are going to do that load management, then you might not have chance to build that chemistry night in and night out if you're going to throw some guys in to the lineup here and there. Anyways, those are my 3 priorities for the Bruins down the stretch. Let me know on Twitter if you agree, disagree, drop a comment on YouTube, and we can continue the discussion there. Before we take a quick look at the week ahead for the Boston Bruins, let's chat about Built Bar. It's a product that we have been all over here on the Locked On Network for quite some time. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all of the fat and calories, then you have to try a Built Bar. They're actually healthy and incredibly tasty. They're so delicious, you won't even think they're good for you. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They come in some unbelievable flavors. And like I said, they're healthy for you. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, a whopping 14 grams of protein. You don't need to wait around to get a box either. For years, we've been talking about how you can order them on built.com, which is still possible. But now you can go to your local Walmart, grab a 4-box from the pharmacy, or go to Sam's Club and grab a 13-bar box. Make the quick drive over there, grab some Built Bars, and thank me later. So what's next for our Boston Bruins? Well, yesterday was the first game of a 5-game road trip that continues tomorrow night in Chicago. The Blackhawks, of course, one of the worst teams in the NHL this season. So that should be a very winnable game for the Boston Bruins. Chicago's 22, 38, and 6, 50 points, 3 up on last place Columbus. The Bruins will then head to Winnipeg to take on the 3rd place in the Central Jets. They're hanging on to a playoff spot at the moment. Let's see. Yeah, they're well in a playoff spot, fighting with Minnesota for 2nd, trying to hold off Colorado for 3rd. Speaking of Minnesota, the Bruins will be there on Saturday to take on the Wild, the first of another weekend back-to-back. After that game, they'll travel to Buffalo to take on the Sabres, who were in the thick of the playoff race, but they've dropped off a little bit now. They are 7 points back of the New York Islanders for the 2nd wild card spot. And on tomorrow's program, we will take a look at the Eastern Conference power rankings, take a look at who's still fighting for a wild card spot, and as a result, who the Bruins might face in the first round of the playoffs. But you look at that schedule, and those are some very winnable games for the Boston Bruins. Chicago should be a winnable game. Buffalo should be a winnable game, even though it's the 2nd of a back-to-back. Winnipeg, Minnesota will be a bit tougher. Minnesota's without Kirill Kaprizov at the moment. So yeah, that's what is on tap for the Boston Bruins this week. We'll preview those games. We'll bring you the power rankings, a cup check, all the latest on the Boston Bruins this week. I might, as a quick programming note, take one day off this week as it's March break up here, and planning to take our boys down to Niagara Falls, which probably will take place on Thursday. So that day there might not be an episode, just as a warning. So consider yourselves caught up. Bruins splitting this back-to-back, clinch a playoff spot, fastest to 50, and laying out the priorities for this team moving forward. I hope you all had a great weekend. I hope your week is off to a great start. And we will talk to you again here tomorrow on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you again here tomorrow.